Hey everyone, Jessica at Pretty Prints and Paper. If you followed me for a while on Instagram, you know that I am a teacher. So that means that fall is coming and classes are starting. So I'm finally getting around to putting together my teaching setup for the fall. Now that everyone else is taken care of, I can look forward to my class. For context, I teach at the university level. I teach one class a semester and a maximum of 26 students. So keep that in mind as you go through this video and take some notes for what might work for you and adapt it to however it might be useful. Even though I'm talking about teaching, this could apply to a whole range of contexts, and I know I've done a video before on education spreads and whatnot, but this is how I'm specifically setting up for the fall based on a lot of different experiments and a lot of refining and thinking through what it is I need this system to do for me. So I'm hoping that I can share that with you all. I have 3 different notebooks that work together to create my teaching system. And the first one is my Foxy, and this is my everyday planner. You've seen it before in most of my videos, but this is where all my tasks live. So I know that some folks like to keep personal and work separate, but I can't keep track of multiple task lists at once. That's why I went to the bullet journal in the first place. So if I have to do it, it goes into this notebook, and I can reference it all throughout the week. So things like lesson planning, things like meet with the student or follow up, or errands that I have to run. And then when grading begins, I track that in my bullet journal as well. So I will add a section. So instead of follow up, it would say grading, and I would add the name of the assignment, and then I create a box for every single paper I have to grade. That sounds depressing, but really it helps because then it's not like this one box that you can't check off for sometimes weeks, right? So I like to just to mark off all the ones that I have at least made progress on so that it motivates me to continue through the rest of them. That may not work for you if you have many sections, but it works for me. It keeps me motivated. So that all goes into here. I also have my work bullet journal, which I've recently flipped through in another video, and that was before I had this set up, so if I were to do it over again, I might put some of the collections and lists that I made in here into my teaching binder. But for example, I keep this running list of things throughout the semester that I want to keep in mind for changes the next semester. So as I stumble upon something, I'm like, oh, okay, I want to remember that. I'm not going to rely on my memory to recall that in the summer. I'm going to write it down so that I can refer to it later, and it's an as-you-go kind of thing. Another spread that I would probably have moved into there is my final attempt at this teaching prep spread. Draft. Final. And this is like the process that I go through every semester to prepare for the next semester. So things like getting my website ready for the students, and getting my teaching team ready for the fall, and the things that I have to go through from a curriculum and teaching standpoint, and then the technical organization pieces like binders and Google documents and stuff like that. That's what I might put into here. And then another one I'll talk about is my norms. And again, I would put these lists all together in my teaching notebook if I did it again. Something that I believe in is making my expectations very clear, whether that's your supervisees, whether that's your students or your teaching team, whatever. There are so many things that we need to tell our students in order for them to be able to learn better, perform better, work with you better. And the more clear that I am about that, the better off that I think we're going to be. So even something like the fact that I want to balance having empathy for my students and holding them accountable, I think I should let them know that, and that even though I care so much about what happens in their lives and the things that might get in the way, there are still ways that I need them to be accountable to the commitments they have made, to their assignments, and to the class. So making that clear, making clear things that I will try to sit in different places in the classroom, or that I communicate heavily by email, that I expect and hope that they ask questions. And they seem obvious, but it's only obvious to me. And I want to make sure that it is clear and explicit for other students as well, because having them question that doesn't help them learn. So this is something that I am trying to be more intentional about this semester. these things as reference and these things as strategy and as high-level thinking as I prepare my teaching have been helpful, even just to write down and go through the process so that I can get to this. This is a disc-bound notebook, obviously by the discs on the side. This is Levenger. I know there are many brands. There's a Staples Arc, there's Martha Stewart, there's Tool at Staples now, but this is the Levenger, and it basically is a set of discs that are connected, and it connects these covers and separators and paper together through a kind of mushroom-shaped punch. You've seen that a little bit with like the Happy Planner. And I love this, and I use this every semester. It's big, so full sheets of paper can fit in here. With my work bullet journal, I don't really care if I can fit papers into it, but it is necessary for me to do it with my teaching notebook. I added a quote to the front. The clear cover made it easy for me to add this quote from one of our readings to the front, and I just lettered that. It keeps me grounded in some of the core principles of our class, and wanted to keep that at the forefront of my mind. I have sections in here. That's the cool thing about the disc bound, is that you can put sections in and move them around as you need to. So every semester, that's what makes it easy for me to pull stuff out and pull new things in. I got these dividers, I think on Amazon, and I love the ones with pockets. So I got the section tabs and the pockets because I'm always getting loose stuff, whether it's from students or randomly around. So this first section is kind of like the technical details of the class. There's so much that goes on in our classroom that I don't really want things like deadlines to be a barrier. So I create a visual calendar because sometimes in a syllabus that line by line calendar is not helpful for visual learners, and for me, I know that this grid is a lot easier and more manageable. So I created this on a Google slide. All I did was add a bar up to the top and add in a pretty font with the month and added a table. It takes a little bit of time, so you could always find a template or whatever, but I wanted some more control over the formatting. And I do a Monday through Sunday start because that's what our Moodle site is, and went in and we referred to the weeks by week, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, and I just put in the readings and some of the due dates that are on there to remove any ambiguity around due dates so that they are prepared. I can say this is a reference and hold them accountable to having and referring to this reference, right? So providing the materials so that they can help themselves is my goal there. And along with that, I have the syllabus, which has everything that the students need to know in it. I like to have it for quick reference. You can see it is quite the document. So I tell them to learn it and love it and live it. Something that I don't have in here yet are my class lists, so I'll print out my roster. There's images that I have with those students. Obviously, I'm not going to show you that here for privacy purposes, but I print that out and try to take notes about who they are and what their names are so that I can learn about them. This next section is lesson plans. So I have a template that I use for pretty much all of my lesson plans, and I've rolled it out with our whole program, and it looks like this. Very simple, and I'll upload it to my site so that you might be able to use it if it helps. At the top, you can't really see it got cut off, but I have the semester, the course, because sometimes I teach 2 different courses, lesson plans, and then the name of the teaching team that I have. And we go by weeks again, so like there's that title at the top, the date, and these boxes you can kind of adjust to whatever is helpful for you. But for me, when we use these, it's to give them to all of our instructors so that we are all teaching the same thing. So you may need less detail, but I err on the side of more detail because I'm constantly teaching other teachers about our curriculum. So that's why you'll see a lot of detail in mine. So class prep, I gotta remember to print this out or collect these things or prep these tasks or activities. We have an agenda on the board every day. I think it's part of showing our students that we do have an intention and a plan for the day, so we have an agenda here. And then as class starts and continues, I can jot down who arrives late, who's absent for points and accountability purposes. The lesson plan in and of itself, I usually teach with a teaching assistant or a co-instructor, so I have a who column for who facilitates that part of the day. We are not a lecture-based class, so we have a lot of different sections for all the different activities and discussions that we have during the day. And I always try to begin with outcomes. As teachers, you want to know that by the end of this time, or even if you're a facilitator, a trainer, a consultant, by the end of this time together, what do you want to have happen, or what do you want them to know or be able to do? And at the end, I have an after class, like if you have a follow-up, could be like notes for next year. You need to email someone back, or, what do you need to change on your Moodle site? Did you move a deadline? Did you have to check in on a technical detail? That could all go here. So I have a bunch of these that I will print off, and I'll add them day by day. And because I have the hole punch, I can make any piece of paper compatible with the system, which is really nice. It's kind of pricey, so before you invest, take a look at all the accessories and see if that's what you want to spend money on. I printed out some dotted paper so that I could just use this as my entire thing. This is the newest thing that I've added to my system, because last year I would try to be taking notes. I didn't have paper and I didn't have it in an organized fashion, so I'm going to do a mini bullet journal system in here in this section. I went to paperkit.net and they already have a letter size dot grid PDF that you can download for free. So I printed out a ton of these so that I can do collections and notes as we go along. So instead of keeping that list in here with the ongoing changes and notes that I want to remember for the future, assignments that didn't work, activities that need to be adjusted, I'm going to write those in here. I'm trying to keep it simple so that I can just rapid log. Something that I often reference as well is that we have these 2 giant group projects, and they self-organize and come up with topics, and we have different assignments that they do. So I wanted to have a section or a place that I can write down what groups they've decided on, because that is a key piece of information that I need and constantly need to reference. So I wanted to give it a place. How much I structure this will depend, but I'm going to start off with this and at least jot it down. I use a lot of Google Docs because I work with so many people on my teaching team at times, and it makes it easier to share and communicate information about class. So even if I write this down in here, I'm going to transfer it to a master Google Doc that has tabs in it, that has the names of students on one side, dates across the top for attendance, that another tab has the student names on the side with the different assignments across the top. And that's how we divvy up who grades what papers, who takes over what assignments, and we color code the row to see, oh right, you have this half of the class for this assignment and I'll take this half, and then we'll switch it for the next. It sounds like a lot, but honestly it saves my life, saves our lives every time, because there's no lack of clarity as to who's got what piece, and it doesn't fall through the cracks. So if you're using digital, don't give that up just to be able to put it in your bullet journal. I recommend using what will make it easier, because there are so many other things about teaching or facilitation or training that you need to focus on that's not maybe necessarily drawing things out, if that's what you are thinking that you need to do. You don't. Since I teach leadership, a lot of the time students decide on things, and I need to keep track of those decisions. So I want to make a running document of all the decisions that they decide to make so that I can keep track of what's going on. The next section is readings, and I finally came up with a good way to keep track of my readings now that I'm not a student. So I printed out all of these, and here's what I do. I have these long sticky notes, and they've got circles on the side. They're from Russell and Hazel, but this will work with any long sticky note that you have, or scraps of paper, washi tape it to the front. I have this alongside me as I read the document, and I start taking notes. In the margin, yes, and I underline and make notes, but then I'm able to take a second and synthesize what are the key points that I want to write down on these notes, because these are the notes that I can do a quick reference to before I teach. So I can jump into the conversation with the key points from the article and not get lost in all the details or need to skim the whole thing. So I'll write down a couple quotes, and then in the circles, I write a page number, where it is, And if you see colors, it's because I use like a red, yellow, green system. Green is like, yes, resonates with me. I love that idea. Yellow is, I'm really needing to explore this some more. I'm going to think about this. I don't know if I completely am on board with that. And then red, which you don't see on here, is I disagree. I can't understand this, and I need to do more thinking about how I can understand it. So not only is this helpful for me as a teacher, but I try to tell my students about this process as well so that they can keep track of these things as well for them as learners. It's been really helpful for me to be able to go back and look through and either have a new take on it as I have more time to think and process the readings, or be able to shorten that preparation time by being able to jump in with that. You can see a couple of the other notes that I've taken. Super helpful. Maybe it'll help you. And then lastly, we do some like group presentations and assessment work in class, and so I don't, this is going to be for more like grading related things. Students also hand in written things that I need to grade and assess, so I'm going to keep that here so that I can separate my own personal reference notes with actual performance-based notes in this section. Whew. We'll see how this works in practice, but I'm very hopeful. I'm very hopeful about it. And of course it can evolve and adapt, and I'll think about what it needs to work for me. But I'm always interested in how teachers teach and how they set themselves up for success in an organizational way. I will, again, always recommend that if you use digital tools, don't cheat yourself of that efficiency. They are there for a reason. As long as it works well for you, it flows, and it makes sense to you. If you're teaching 6 classes, of course that doesn't make sense to have, handwritten anything for all these things, but maybe a couple of these references or collections might help you keep track of all those things or make it easier for you to do your job well. There are some other layouts that I've done in another video called 16 Layouts for Educators, and I highly recommend that you check that out because there's a couple other things in there that you might like, especially if you want to keep notes about your students or other things. So check that out. If you have other thoughts that I haven't considered, and I would love to hear them down below, so leave your comments, and if you like it, share it, thumbs up, subscribe, but most of all, I hope that you enjoy it. I'll see you next time.